Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Saratoga Foundation and our event today, which is entitled The Russian Attack on the Danube and Its Implications for NATO and Black Sea Security. On August 28th, Russia launched its first successful naval drone strike on the Danube, targeting the Ukrainian reconnaissance vessel Simferopol and a carefully well-planned attack 200 meters from the Romanian border. The August 28th attack took place on the Chilia branch of the Danube, approximately 200 meters and from the river border between Romania and Ukraine. It is also 24 kilometers from the mouth of the Danube branch into the Black Sea. Now, for those of you who are interested in a detailed assessment of this attack, I would recommend that you check out the New Strategy Center's analysis of the August attack that is featured on the New Strategy Center in Romania, and our guest speaker is going to be our good friend George Scutaro. So you can find out more information on that. We'll put up a link to it and a post after the event. Now, the Russian strike on the Danube was by a Ukrainian or by an uncrewed surface vehicle, otherwise known as a naval drone, which capsized a key Ukrainian intelligence ship, the Simferopol, which was gathering information that on Russian attacks on Odessa. And this attack indicated that there was significant improvement in Russian USV capabilities, and they're now operating naval drones in inland waters by bypassing natural barriers and maritime borders, now directly endangering Romania's economic lifeline on the Black Sea. Now, many of you know already that Romania is a key member of NATO and an anchor of Black Sea security. So the recent attack on the Danube is highly significant because it underscored Moscow's increasing sophistication in coordination, command and control, targeting capabilities, first tested this past July when Russia was conducting naval exercises held in the Baltic known as July Storm. Now the Danube attack has important consequences for the conduct of naval warfare, and it should give NATO and the EU serious cause for concern because it represents a challenge for the protection of critical infrastructure in the Black Sea, as well as on the Danube and the Baltic Sea. Now, in many ways, it's a watershed moment for the Ukraine conflict and Black Sea security, expanding the battlefield into the inland waterways of the Danube and testing the security of NATO. Most importantly, the attack reveals that Moscow has a growing capability to use unmanned systems for asymmetric warfare against both military and civilian infrastructure. And the implications of the attack extend well beyond Ukraine. And for Romania, NATO, and the EU, the incident highlights growing vulnerabilities and early warning, port security, and resilience of the Danube corridor. Today's discussion will consider all of these aspects and their implications for regional stability, alliance credibility, and the future of hybrid warfare in Europe, and more importantly, address what the implications are for the U.S. Navy. Joining us in this discussion today are a group of esteemed experts. We have the first speaker will be George Scutaro, who's CEO of the New Strategy Center in Bucharest, Romania, and former National Security Advisor to the President of Romania. George will discuss the Simferopol attack and its implications for Romania. Our second speaker will be Ihor Kabanenko, a former Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, retired Naval Admiral, and also Senior Fellow Toga at the Saratoga Foundation. Ihor will be discussing Russian strategy in using naval drones and how they have been experimenting with the use of drones this past summer. Third speaker will be Andrei Ryzhenko, retired Ukrainian Navy captain, and he'll be discussing what the implications of the attack are for the Ukrainian Navy and what lessons can be learned from the attack. And last but not least, we have Dr. Stephen Wills, who's currently a navalist for the Center for Maritime Strategy at the Navy League of the United States. A big shout out to Admiral Fogo for letting us have Steve speak today, so we much appreciate it. Steve is an expert on the U.S. Navy strategy and policy and U.S. Navy surface warfare programs and platforms, and he'll be assessing what the implications of the August 28 attack are for the U.S. Navy. So, George, the floor is yours. Tell us what type of geopolitical messaging was Russia sending to Romania by this attack?
Glenn, thank you very much for this great opportunity to share with you and your American friends our thoughts about this event. It's very serious, and I think Romania must not ignore, and NATO must not ignore Russia's signal or the threat itself, because in 2023, Ukrainian Danube ports played an important role to assure the vital corridor for Ukrainian export to entire world for cereals, for Ukrainian grains. And also, Romania has important assets. We have shipyards on the Danube. This corridor also it's important for Romania's interest. And please have in mind that the Black Sea has two gates, two entrances. The Turkish gates, well known, but also the Danube. And Danube link the Black Sea with Germany, with the core of Europe. And it's very important these signals received from Russian side. First of all, they show us, because it's important to understand, the attack was filmed by a Russian reconnaissance drone, and in the same day afternoon made public by the Russian Ministry of Defense. By doing so, Russia assumed full responsibility of the strike, precisely to demonstrate its capability to carry out attacks with naval drones, not only in Black Sea, but also on the Danube. A complex operation that requires strong coordination. And for us, it's important to understand that Romania will be in 2027 the largest gas producer in EU. We are in the middle of the process to build up our critical energy infrastructure in the Black Sea. Neptune Deep, the richest perimeter of Romania, will assure gas not only for Romania, but also for Republic of Moldova. We can assure gas during a crisis, energy crisis during the winter for a lot of Balkan countries. And also in 2027, Romania will start to export to Germany. A part of Black Sea gas will assure the energy independence of Germany. And you know how important is gas for German industry. And taking into account all these dimensions, I think it's necessary to think very seriously to have false flag operations conducted by Russians. And you have this similarity between some Ukrainian drones like Magura 5 or Oduvanchik Russian drones, and they could blame Ukrainians and to try to hit targets on Romanian EEZ, Economic Exclusive Zone. It's necessary to underline one aspect. EEZ is not covered by Article 5. NATO doesn't have any responsibility to protect Economic Exclusive Zone of a NATO member. And in this case, Romania will be alone. And it's necessary to understand better and to use this great capacity of Ukrainian friends to understand Russian naval drones warfare, and also Russian capacity to use naval drones for operations against Ukraine, but also against NATO. Because you are right when you mentioned that this what's happening in the Black Sea could affect also the freedom of navigation in the Baltic Sea. And Russia will try to duplicate. Russia is using Black Sea as a laboratory for hybrid activities. And even when you have a ceasefire or a peace agreement, Russia will come with vessels in the western basin of the Black Sea to harass the freedom of navigation. They are not here today because they are afraid to not be targeted by Ukrainian missiles and Ukrainian drones. But immediately after a ceasefire, Russia will come back. And also Russia will continue to, as before the full-scale invasion, to block perimeters under the pretext of SNAP naval exercises, to continue with cyber attacks, but also we have this example of naval drone attacks. And I'm pretty sure that Russia will try to use also false flag operation. And it's important also for us because now I think Romania should to work to see all this procedure regarding the protection of critical infrastructure and ports, because I assume Russia will try to target some assets including in a NATO country like Romania, using naval drones under the false flag operation umbrella. And also, you mentioned also the role of Romania as an EU country. You know, in late June, EU published and assume a dedicated strategy to focus on the Black Sea. One of the concrete points of this strategy is the initiative to have a Black Sea security maritime hub. And I think it's necessary as fast as possible. And our leadership had discussion with Madame von der Leyen during his visit a few days ago in Romania about the necessity to open this maritime security hub very soon in Constanța on the Black Sea shore, and to start to work at EU level, also with Ukrainian friends, with Turkish friends, with American friends, to secure, to monitor, first of all, what's happening in the Black Sea, to share information between us, and also to protect critical infrastructure, to maintain a free and open Black Sea. It's important not only for Romania, but I think it's important for Ukraine. It's important for global trade. It's important for American interest. And I give you an example. President Trump just solved the issue of the long conflict, 3-decade conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. You have Zanzibar corridor, we'll have Middle Corridor project. Black Sea means also connectivity and a lot of energy. And I think for American interest, it's necessary to maintain together a free and open Black Sea. And I stop here, and I'm happy to answer to your questions.
Thank you, George. You made some great points emphasizing the connectivity to Trump's strategy of brokering a peace deal between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and the importance of the middle corridor in the economics of this region. So with Russian USVs running around the Danube, blowing up things, it's certainly going to create some national security problems for the United States in the Black Sea. Now, our second speaker is Admiral Kabaniko. Admiral Kabaniko, you've been a long-time observer, written a lot about the Black Sea. You recently wrote about this for the Saratoga Foundation, about the two Bs, the Baltic and Black Sea, and the connectivity and interconnectivity between them, which is very important in naval strategy to emphasize. So, Ihor, what are your major takeaways from this recent attack on the Simferopol and the Russians' future use of the USVs? Certainly, they've learned a new means of asymmetric warfare in the Black Sea. So tell us what you think has been going on.
Yeah, Graham, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to take part in this important Saratoga Foundation event. And also special thanks, appreciation to George Skutar for prompt and deep analysis of recent Russian USV strike in the Danube Delta. In fact, the Kremlin is actively developing its naval drones capability for use. I would like to stress in continental seas of its strategic flanks, in so-called 2Bs, you mentioned this, Glenn, the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea. Well known that Ukraine pioneered the use of attack USVs as organic part of its Mosquito means asymmetric naval capability, alongside anti-ship missiles and other assets, to effectively reduce Russia's Black Sea fleet potential. Starting in 2023, Ukrainian sea drones damaged or sank the row of key Russian warships, and such attacks forced the Black Sea fleet to retreat from occupied Crimea to Novorossiysk. All of this is well known. Due to the critical vulnerability of Russian warships from attacks of Ukrainian naval drones, Moscow has focused on defensive capabilities for at least 2 years. It should be noted that Russia has made quite significant progress in this matter, starting with the use of on-board large caliber rapid fire mounts, close and distant protection measures, including protective booms, barriers, which unfortunately was not done with the case with Simferopol reconnaissance ship. Moscow has also brought in helicopters, fast boats, and other assets to protect the Crimean Bridge, Sevastopol, and Novorossiysk naval bases from Ukrainian sea drones attacks. Recently, Moscow announced the transfer of the first fiber optic controlled naval drone to the Black Sea Fleet. Its ability to operate as kamikaze drone, attack drone, naval drone in long distance is questionable, but the platform could be a carrier for FPV drones to hunter off Ukrainian naval unmanned systems in close to coast areas, Russian coast areas. Such drones may have the ability to create long-term mobile protective barriers if their swarm capability would be achieved. However, their reliance on fiber optic control highlights Russia's deficiency in advanced satellite communication systems. Nonetheless, the emergence of such systems cannot be ignored, as the inability to jam them via electronic warfare means need to develop new countermeasures to address this threat. Even with limited range, fiber optic naval drones represent a technological adaptation that could be scaled up over time. Following the recent Russian naval drone attack in the Danube Delta, albeit in a single scale, it is absolutely clear that Moscow is steadily pursuing its own program to develop attack drones, naval drones. Regarding this, let me remind Russia, as you mentioned also this, Glenn, Russia has a large-scale naval exercise called July Storm in late July this year. While the Black Sea Fleet did not participate, the exercise's most notable element, from my perspective, was the deployment of 2 new Russian strike naval drones that destroyed a floating target. Thus, it should be assumed that if fully realized, the potential of Russian naval drones, both strike and protective, may provide Moscow with some asymmetric advantage, especially in limited maritime theaters as exists in 2Bs. Geography, as all this matters, both seas have limited dimension are enclosed, with access limited to narrow straits. Potential Russian naval drones can cover all such maritime domains, deploying from occupied Crimea as well as from Kaliningrad, as far as the Danish Straits or the Bosphorus. At the same time, create killing zones near Sevastopol or Novorossiysk to deny the enemy asymmetric assets approach. Current length and architecture of Russia's coastline in the Black Sea extended at the expense of occupied Crimea, give Moscow ability to maneuver its naval drones between different coastal areas, projecting its asymmetric sea power even in the northwestern and central parts of the Black Sea. There, the Russian missile warships, traditional Russian naval assets, cannot carry out their strike missions due to the threat of attacks by Ukrainian naval drones and anti-ship missiles. At the same time, Russian attack USVs could serve as a force multiplier in the Baltic Basin, enabling Russia to harass NATO forces, slow their operations, and force them into a defensive posture despite the numerical superiority. Drawing on painful lessons from Ukraine's success in the Black Sea, Moscow may make a bid on naval drones in the Baltics. Let's face it, the Russian naval shift to sea drones is obvious, what means an intensification of its war at sea. The map behind Gerasimov at the end of August very clearly demonstrated Moscow's ambitions in framework of the so-called improvement of Russia's geostrategic position in the warm seas, that means in the Black Sea basin. Regarding this, we should assume what not only the escalation of Russian naval drones warfare against our maritime economy, but also a sea drones against sea drones war is looming ahead. Thus, it is critically important from my perspective not to stop development and deployment of asymmetric means and methods of naval warfare. And an advantage achieved once via some types of naval drones does not guarantee success without constant development of naval strategy and technological solutions needed to act preemptively and effectively, including advanced maritime domain awareness systems, swarm and interceptor solutions, etc. Asymmetric advantages Ukraine already has should not be lost. At the same time, unmanned as well as manned mosquito capabilities have to build up. This is what I would like to say today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ihor. You made some great points, and later I want to come back to you and ask you about Ukraine pioneered the use of sea drones in the Black Sea, but now the Russians have not been sitting around. They've been watching, they've been adapting, they have been studying lessons learned, and then they applied it in the Baltic in July when they conducted those attacks. So I'm going to come back to you and ask you about that. Andrei, tell us what are your takeaways from the recent attacks on the Simferopol. You had indicated that Ukrainian Navy personnel were not prepared for this. There seems to be some planning that was lacking. They didn't have a naval boom or a barrier put up around the ship, even though it's been operating there. So, and it also, how did the Russians travel all the way from Crimea to conduct this well-planned attack and film it using Orlan drones at the time of the attack, meaning that they had advanced planning, knowledge, and good human intelligence on the ground where the ship was. So, Andrei, can you tell us what your impressions are of this attack?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for invitation. Yeah, first of all, I checked some Russian Telegram channels regarding comments on this issue, and what I found, some of the comments was okay. Or finally, we get communication, and we could do it. I see the biggest challenge for them was communication, how to communicate, how to do C2 of the drone. For Russia, it's not a problem to send drone from Crimea to Delta of Danube. It's problem how to get targeting and how to provide the C2. And somehow they could implement it. But go back to your question, actually, I see three biggest failures of Ukrainians, which unfortunately happens this day. First one, it's synchronization. Many defense and security agencies, they have maritime drones. It's security service, it's main intelligence directorate, this is Navy, this is unmanned system command, and this is border guard at least. And somehow they didn't coordinate, and this Russian drone get inside, and nobody did anything. And you actually correctly noted that this maritime drone was guided by air drone. It means it's a two drones together, and obviously I would say Ukrainian guys saw it, but again did nothing. But I need to admit that presence of Russian air drones in this area, it's not seldom case. They're almost constantly actually doing this. Your very big friend Admiral Voronchenko last weekend spent in Kharkiv district, and he told me that all night tens of Russian drones, these Shahids, was flying over his mother village, just tens, dozens of them. Actually, it's quite many, and last attack was 800 drones over Ukraine. Second, it's access to Delta of Danube. How this Russian drone get inside Danube River? I know one of the options that it was allowed for this drone to come by mistake, because this drone came to the Danube when its entrance was cleared for other agency. I will not mention which one, but this drone came, stay across this AGI Simferopol, and she was observed, and she was quite calm for a certain period of time, but in one moment unexpectedly increased speed and hit a ship. And third item, this is activity, counter-sabotage activity of the crew, because what I see on the video, crew were completely unprepared to act against anything like maritime drone. And it reminds me for August 2023 when Ukraine conducted strike on Novorossiysk when attack LST, Elnigorsky Gornyak, it was almost the same. Open doors, open hatches, crew on the top deck doing nothing, and no any resistance actually at all. And I believe these three items should be big lessons for Ukraine in the future. Actually, even I know that many of this done. I was a couple months ago in Mykolaiv. You know, it's located on southern Buk River, and I saw this physical protection against this drone, not allowing them to go to southern Buk, to Mykolaiv, starting from barges to the like protective nets, a lot of, and they were set up just for the time of the war. Yeah, entrance control is extremely important, and somebody need to coordinate all activities and prevent these failures like it's happened. Also, physical protection. Physical protection, I told you, Russians using this physical protections, different type of like this net obstacles, like barges. We're also using the same. We just need to keep up with this because physically drone cannot, not helicopter, it cannot fly over. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, it will be stopped. And actually, the crew of the ship must be trained for anti-sabotage activity because crew actually even didn't try to shoot or do anything. And this ship was underway, not on anchorage. And it means that signalman guys, they should be on a signal bridge with machine guns. And when they see approaching vessels, they must open fire from machine guns immediately. But it didn't happen. And machine gun is quite good weapon, actually. Russians, in fact, destroyed many of our maritime drones using machine guns. Yeah, what I would say for the future, first one, despite its significance, some kind of success, it's emotional, it's propaganda success of Russia. Russia, frankly speaking, for their navy, they don't need drones. They have a lot of missiles, and they build everything on missiles. They now developing Zircon, this hypersonic missiles. They're very happy that they build a submarine with this Zircon. They put them in frigates, they put them on a new nuclear cruiser. Yeah, missiles, they have a lot of missiles, much more than anybody in Black Sea, actually. But the drones, yeah, they will continue to develop, and I would say, I would not be surprised if this Rubicon, quite famous Russian unit, a secret unit which was created a year ago, will have this maritime branch like Rubicon, maybe Kilo or Red October, I would say. Yeah, and based in Sevastopol. And yeah, also, yeah, they will use this for sabotage. I agree with Mr. George Skolutaro. Sabotage, because sabotage, they're excellent. They're invisible, they're maneuverable, and you never know who did it, actually. They will speculate that Ukraine did it by mistake. And intelligence also, for intelligence, it's perfect. And they will probably continue to do it, and they can, and from Sevastopol to Danube River, not far away, Danube River Delta, it's only 150 nautical miles. Any boat and any drone with a length of 5-6 meters can do it very easily and actually even come back. Yeah, this distance in this case doesn't limit them at all. But I would say also my conclusion, this mosquito fleet, which we were promoting with Admiral Kabanenko starting from 2017-18, it's only solution for Black Sea navies, because if Russia will keep Crimea Peninsula, I would say there's no any other way, actually, because currently any vessel with a length more than 50 meters can be identified and attacked by Russians easily. And in fact, this AGI was attacked already a few times in Odessa. It was in media, and Russians tried to use this Iskander to do it. Yeah, and this is why I would say probably in order to make survivable surface fleet in conditions of Russian aggression, the small maneuverable vessels which capable act nimbly can be probably the most survivable solution. Anything which bigger probably can be destroyed. And currently, this what happened actually, it just demonstrated. Yeah, I would like to say that smallest vessel which we destroy Ukraine was a missile boat at Project 1241. Ivanovets has a length of 55 meters. Yeah, all of, and the rest were bigger. And physically, I would say, these maritime drones, they cannot act against small mosquito fleet, which currently Ukrainian Navy has, because they simply has a less speed than them and less maneuverability. And Russian now means to hunt to our drones, also based on their small boats, like Grachonok or Raptor. They use also FPV drones to hunt Ukrainian maritime drones in Kerch, in Novorossiysk. Yeah, this is my tiny little vision on all this issue, what happened.
Thank you very much, Andrea. You're always giving really insightful analysis. And so this is very enlightening and helps us kind of, I really found your point about any vessel longer than 50 meters is at danger in the Black Sea. Very good point. You also talk about the mosquito fleet strategy of Ukraine. Unfortunately, it's ballyhooed and talked about, but they're not. Ukraine's not putting the investment in a mosquito fleet. Instead, they're still building large warships that are now in Turkey. So our next speaker will be Dr. Stephen Wills, Center for Maritime Strategy, and Naval Affairs. Steve, you've obviously been following this and looking at it from what lessons the U.S. Navy might be taking away from this. And I guess my question for you: are NATO forces at risk because of these events in recent events in the Danube, and also exercises in the Black Sea, where the Russians appear to be coordinating their USV campaign? So, what is your takeaway on the recent attacks?
Hey, thank you so very much, Glenn, for inviting me here today. Let me start at the tactical level and then sort of spread out to the operational and then the strategic. The U.S. Navy has certainly been watching this conflict from its outset and has already learned a number of lessons for the direction in which naval warfare is going. Let me first start with surface warfare in particular. As both our Ukrainian officers have mentioned, training and readiness for these kind of attacks is of vital importance. So you can't be caught napping. This is very similar to what the U.S. Navy perhaps saw decades ago in the Persian Gulf when the mine menace first came about in the wake of Samuel B. Roberts and other ships that hit mines in conflict. So we had to prepare for mines, post more lookouts, be prepared to destroy mine-like objects wherever they appeared. So certainly this conflict has shown, first and foremost, from the Russian perspective, that they were not prepared for Ukrainian drone attacks. We see that vividly in some of the video that was displayed from, I believe it was the Cesar Kunikov, with Russian sailors running about on deck, not manning those machine guns that Captain Andre mentioned to try and repel drones. So we're seeing a cycle of learning here in terms of readiness of both sides and being prepared to respond to a maritime drone. So the crew training part, the readiness, manning a small craft action team and so forth is of vital importance, and everybody needs to be prepared for this. And you're absolutely right, Glenn, this extends to NATO forces as well. There's a new NATO maritime strategy out on the streets dating from June, and it does specifically mention that Russia is upgrading its maritime forces and introducing new technologies, specifically underwater reconnaissance and warfare capabilities, as well as surface drones. So NATO is watching this carefully. There's a lot to be learned here, and moving from kind of the tactical level to the theater level, Admiral Kabanenko spoke about both the Black Sea and the Baltic being very similar here. And this is exactly correct. And certainly the U.S. Navy's observed this. The same kind of tactics, techniques, and procedures that Ukraine has used so successfully to prevent Russian amphibious attacks in the Black Sea, to prevent its naval forces from getting close enough to fire weapons and impact the course of the battle on land, could be flipped and used by the Russians in the Baltic Sea region, which is, again, another very littoral and very joint environment. It is a sea, but the Scandinavians call the Black Sea a sunken meadow, or excuse me, the Baltic Sea a sunken meadow. The Black Sea is similar in that it's surrounded by nations and land, so that lots of different warfare systems can play a part. So the same kind of Russian drones that you see being developed here could impact NATO forces operating in the Baltic Sea with similar effects. The Russians don't have as much in the Baltic anymore. Kaliningrad has lost a lot of its materials and certainly troops that have been sucked away to fight in the Ukraine operation. But the development of these drones is a significant step for the Russians and could impact the ability of the NATO alliance to operate successfully in the Baltic. So there's a lot of lessons learned to be developed from that. Another thing the U.S. Navy is watching is how this applies to defense in general. The U.S. Tactics instructor at the Navy Postgraduate School, the late Captain Wayne Hughes, used to say that the closer you get to land and the more littoral warfare becomes, the messier and uglier it gets for naval forces. And I think we're seeing that happen. It was bad enough, 100 years ago when it was just torpedoes, mines, and guns that were out there. And now we've added cruise missiles, and now we've added drones, and we've added aircraft. So for the U.S. Navy, the closer you get into littoral waters, the more of these threats that you have to deal with. So it requires more joint coordination with land and air-based forces. So warfare really becomes a joint level. More importantly than ever before, naval forces cannot rely solely upon their own cueing and sensors. You've got to get help from land-based forces. You got to get help from those in the air. So I think that's another important lesson that's a takeaway from the conflict we're seeing here. This also has implications for the Indo-Pacific that the United States will take away in terms of what does the defense of Taiwan look like? How can the introduction of some of these uncrewed, unmanned systems be useful in repelling an amphibious assault there? Again, Ukraine has been very successful in deterring amphibious attacks. Many of us watched before the Russian invasion where that large number of Russian amphibious vessels entered the Black Sea from other locations. And we all kind of scratched our heads and say, oh, they're planning some sort of a pincer operation, perhaps, in addition to land operations where, Russian troops would come from the sea and attack Ukraine. That hasn't happened. And I think Ukraine's efforts have played a great role in deterring that. We should never underestimate our Russian friends. They've been pioneering this kind of effort for a very long time. They were one of the early adoptees of the submarine. If you know your First World War history, you'll know that the Russians built a massive sort of combination of air and sea-based assets in the Black Sea to delay and defeat the German attempts to take various islands in the Black Sea and the Baltic in the course of World War I. So the Russians are adept at using these systems for both offense and defense. So the fact that they've been introduced now, the sea-based drones into the Black Sea fight is certainly of concern. There's certainly also the battle damage assessment and publicity value of this too. Ukraine has been very successful in showing instant battle damage assessment. We sank the Ivanovets, and here it is going down. You can see it. This is a powerful tool in influencing opinion, and now the Russians appear to be doing that as well. So there's a cycle of learning at play here, I think, and all of us in the West need to be aware of what this is and be prepared for it accordingly. We may not have all drone combat yet, and a lot of it is limited more to the littoral region in terms of where the Navy is concerned, but drone technology keeps getting better, batteries get better, stay time and endurance for drones gets better, and this is only going to be a growing problem. It certainly plays, and I'll end with this, a role in U.S. Navy force structure. You see now where the Navy is actively pushing to get more unmanned platforms out there, specifically the modular surface attack craft that would probably be coming into play in both offense and defense in coordination with manned warships. Just as the dreadnought from 100 years ago, the big gun battleship, would not set sail without its escort of destroyers, today's manned warship should not get underway without an escort of unmanned things around it, in the air, on the water, and underneath, because manned warships are going to be at threat from some of the systems that we've discussed here. So yes, the U.S. Navy is carefully watching this. I think it has great impact on the systems that the Navy is trying to rapidly procure now, especially in terms of unmanned systems. You just saw where the Navy led another contract to develop unmanned aviation assets as well, in addition to all the companies out there that are trying to develop unmanned surface assets. So there's definitely a cycle of learning going here, and what Ukraine has done so far has been absolutely magnificent and amazing in deterring Russian attack, and we're only seeing the beginning of this in terms of naval warfare, I think. And I'm happy to take any questions after, Glenn, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I will. I want to go back to what Ihor had said about that he thinks that this is a force multiplier for the Russians, and obviously in the Baltic, NATO and the United States have a very significant advantage in naval forces. But it's certainly with Kaliningrad, it may be an isolated outpost on the Baltic, but it certainly can be a hub for USV activity. George, let's go back to you and some of your thoughts. How did this attack kind of penetrate Romania's maritime security? I mean, there's all these different agencies, border patrol aspects. And what does this mean for Romania's ability to coordinate among its different services about these types of future attacks on the Danube?
Obviously, this is a challenge for our interagency common work, because also was a surprise for Romania too, not only for Ukraine, this attack. And for this reason, I mentioned previously that I think Romanian authorities is necessary to work together with Ukrainian friends to understand better this kind of new approach coming from Russian side. Because indeed, Andriy mentioned Russia has a lot of traditional capabilities, submarines, corvettes with missiles, but naval drones could be used by Russia, especially as part of false flag operations during post-war times. And because it's very difficult to establish traceability. You have very clear, you can speak about a Russian drone attack because Russia has assumed this attack. But it's very difficult to establish traceability and to blame Russia, okay, directly, and to have very clear evidences if Russia will not assume this kind of attacks. And for this reason, I think it's necessary to rethink maybe some procedures in Romania, but also because Stephen pointed very well and spoke about a lesson learned for US Navy. And I think it's necessary to discuss at NATO level and to try to absorb this, what's happened in the Black Sea, in the Danube, and to use this lesson for to enhance our defense capabilities. And I have also, I raise the questions because what kind of lesson learned Russia could share with Iran, for instance? Mm-hmm. Okay, because these kind of tools are very cheap. Okay, and North Korea or Iran, or even Iran proxy, like Houthi, could develop very well with Russian support this kind of instruments trying to harass the freedom of navigation. Because in the world, you have 3 seas. You can see 3 seas where the freedom of navigation is challenged. It's South China Sea by China, it's Red Sea by Iran using Houthis proxy, and Black Sea by Russia. Okay, and you have this commonality. You have a coalition of together with Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, and they are working better than Iron Pact during the World War II between Japan, German Nazi, and Italian fascists in Italy. They are working better and deeper comparing what's happened in the World War II. And I think it's necessary to think what kind of lesson learned will be absorbed by Iran. Because in the middle, in the Persian area, Iran could create a lot of troubles for freedom of navigation using naval drones. And I think as Iran helped Russia with Shahed drones, with technology, with spare parts, with ammunition, I think Russia could deliver them not only some thoughts or results of this attack, but also some technology. This, I think, it's a question for us. And also, please don't forget that Russia has a maritime base in Tartus in Eastern Mediterranean. And naval drones could be used by Russia also to harass and to create problems for American Sixth Fleet in Mediterranean or naval assets of allies. For them, it's very important to protect this shadow fleet, because without shadow fleet, Russia will not have enough money to continue the war, the aggression against Ukraine. And let's have in mind also this idea, how Russia will use naval drones to protect shadow fleet and to continue to assure and to avoid sanctions and to continue to assure the flow of money for the war machine.
You make some great points, George. I think all of that is what you're pointing to, is that we really need to kind of assess what all this means and getting these different perspectives. Ihor, I want to go back to you on what you said earlier. And my question for you, do you think that USVs for the Russian Navy, because they've been experimenting with them in the Baltic, do you think it's going to become the principal strike weapon of the Russian Navy now? Or do you think it's just going to be part of an arsenal of different asymmetric tools it may use?
I think what naval drones capabilities, let me emphasize both strike and protective, have already mirrored in Russian naval strategy and doctrine. Why? Because Russia always, it's a historical issue, Russia always try to find a balance between offensive and defensive capabilities. And in this case, it works like that from my perspective. And because when Russia will accumulate enough assets, such assets, again, I would stress both offensive and defensive, they will use them. And I absolutely agree with Georgia, what Russia can use this to harass the freedom of navigation on a false flag approach, based on false flag approach, not only in the Black Sea, but for Ukraine, it's of course, it's increasing of level of threats for our littoral waters, our littoral communication, our littoral maritime communications, maritime routes. But also one question is important, what it's, short view from my perspective, got this in the media, what NATO enjoys of superior number, technologies, intelligence, etc., capabilities, and can't just adequately contract with such Russian new, let's say, capabilities, naval capabilities. But I'm not sure what this is exactly like that, because most NATO naval assets, they are symmetrical, traditional, and it's not only machine guns. The machine guns can't protect effectively against naval drones attacks naval drones attacks. So from my perspective, the alliance should adapt to use the threat as up to each Russia's new capability, new naval capability, as Russia tried to establish. And again, I'm absolutely sure what Russia will develop such capabilities for strikes and to create killing zones near Sevastopol naval base, Novorossiysk naval base, near Crimean Bridge, and other important coastal areas, important for Russia coastal areas.
Ihor, the attack occurred near Izmail, where Ukraine has a very large grain facility unloading. Is this attack more? Is there any kind of concern that you have that they may start using USVs to attack some of the grain ships? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And in this regard, from my perspective, we need to pay more attention to defensive measures. Defensive measures, passive and active as well. And it needs for us, it's urgent needs for us to develop, drone interceptors. Of course, this experience we already got, and some of such capabilities they already publicly demonstrated, mostly based on Magura class and other classes, types of drones equipped by FPV drones on board, deployed on board. I think this track is adequate, but also another, technological capabilities should be implemented and should be developed to provide reliable protection of our sea routes. And of course, it's a grain communications.
George, you wanted to comment?
One sentence. If Russia will attack again, and especially a large civil targets, civil ship, the problem is not if Russia will sink this ship. The problem is that with this ship, Russia can block the channel.
Yeah, sure.
And this will be very effective. To block the Kilia channel, the channel between Ukraine and Romania, but also to block a Sulina channel, the main getaway of Romania through Danube, from Danube to the Black Sea. This is a possibility, not theoretically, unfortunately, after 28th of August attack, because we discuss about a river, but Danube River is not about Black Sea, and they have this possibility not only to target, but using one attack, one drone, to create a very important consequences for the flow of goods through to Danube, and to block entire flow of navigation through Danube.
That's a great point, George. That we hadn't thought about, and certainly moving forward to consider. Ihor, just a quick question for you, and I didn't want to forget you, Andre, but I do want to ask about countermeasures. I mean, what would be a countermeasure? Are the Mosquito fleet, the fast attack boats that Sweden gave Ukraine, could that be an adequate countermeasure to like escort for the grain ships if the Russians do attack a grain ship?
I think different countermeasures should be implemented. Again, I would just emphasize both passive as protective, barriers near the naval bases, near the ports, near the piers, near the ships on the raid, and so on. But also active, including using of naval drones, which can be used. I think it's nearest perspective. Such drones can be used as a part of convoy to protect grain vessels on their routes. As well as I would stress, we need again to improve our maritime domain awareness capabilities to clarify threats as soon as possible during their deployment in vicinity of our sea routes.
Yes, Steve, you want to comment? And then we're
Yeah, just two quick points there. First of all, to George's point about the proliferation of, you know, unmanned systems and drones like this. Certainly, we've already seen where cruise missiles and drone and aviation drones have proliferated all the way down to non-state actor groups like the Houthis that George mentioned. So sadly, I have probably no doubt that you're going to get surface drones that will equally penetrate deeply into the environment and become much more widespread and more of a concern that everybody's going to have to deal with, including the U.S. Navy, and all those choke points and areas where free flow of navigation is under threat that George pointed out, in addition to the Strait of Hormuz as well as another potential location, could all be under threat. Second point goes to the Admiral's comment about convoys. This is very important, and this is driving what I think the U.S. Navy and a number of navies are pursuing, and that's manned and unmanned teaming. So you've got to coordinate your manned asset, whatever that is, with people on it, and the unmanned asset you're using, however big, however small, even if that is a sort of harbor patrol craft that's operating and controlling 3 or 4 drone patrol craft. That, I think, is where we're going. In some ways, though, what's old is new again. If you remember, and the nets discussion is especially good. Up until World War I, capital ships carried torpedo nets that they would deploy at anchorage in order to protect them from attacks by torpedoes. In the same way, we're talking about nets now. They got rid of the nets because they were afraid if a net fell off in actual battle, it would snag in their propellers and they'd be in serious trouble then and disabled. So naval warfare is only getting more complicated, and we're going to have to keep all these things in mind moving forward.
Thank you for sharing. Andre.
Yeah, regarding protection, how to deal with this maritime drones. Again, I would say I see four items. First, ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. And in fact, you know, after it happened, Ukrainian GUR, main intelligence directorate, they say that will cover most of this. In fact, entrance control, all critical infrastructure, delta of the rivers, seaports, maritime economics, they must have a system how to control access. And this access must be controlled, and in case of some kind of sea control, I would say. And the physical protection is part of entrance control, but it's a physically built different constructions which limiting mobility of the maritime drones, counter mobility operation, I would say. And action of the anti-sabotage action of personnel, because this anti-sabotage action or personnel of civilian crew must be trained, military crew must be trained, personnel of the seaports must be trained. Remember how it's happened during counter-piracy operations. Everybody was trained how to act against pirates. The same should be like against maritime drones. And also, you see currently at Black Sea the most effective way how to counter maritime drones. It's again small boats, like it's 10 to 25 meter boats with machine guns, with artillery, and they actually faster than maritime drones. They have radars, they can intercept these drones, and they also may use FPV drones to destroy them. Remember, before Russians used helicopters, and helicopters was quite effective until our guys set up surface-to-air missiles or machine guns. When they lost 3 helicopters and 2 aircraft.
On the drones, you installed those type of surface there?
Yeah, on maritime drones. Yeah, on Magura. Magura drones has it. Machine gun can shoot vertical 90 degrees. And after that, they actually start to use these small boats. You know, once I was investigating, it was case when Ukrainian guerrilla warfare, they found one document from boat. It's called Grachonak. It's Russian boat anti-sabotage in Kerch. And I checked this unit, and I found that they're requesting a lot of FPV drones from Russian charity, and they use these FPV drones to act against our maritime drones in Kerch Strait, because FPV drones they are small but they are maneuverable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is actually also part of physical protection. Physical can be fixed and mobile, and this is part of mobile. Yeah, this is pretty, but it's pretty much possible to do. Actually, it's a headache, and I would say critical vulnerability of site which defending from these maritime drones that it's very hard to identify, to detect them. And we need to build our defense actually using technical and organizational issues to identify drone as far as possible and neutralize it.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to have to wrap it up here, and sadly, this very rich discussion is going to end. But I wanted to thank you, each of you, for participating today, providing your insights. And we'll be posting this video online, and there will be a transcript of it as well on the Saratoga Foundation website. So again, very much want to thank you for participating today, and look forward to having you again. And George, Steve, Ihor, and Andre, thanks for participating. So take care.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
All
Glenn.
the best.
All the best.
Zapere Bohu.
Mhm.
Goodbye. Дякую.
Goodbye.